Is this Steve?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Dustin with Brutal Planet.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Really good. How you been?
I'm doing, I guess, as well as could be expected right now, but doing all right though. doing all right though, man.
So anyway, I'm a big fan of the band personally, and this is your first record, full length anyway, with the band. Talk about, I guess, how'd you end up here?
Ooh, what a road. I mean, I can. I guess it would kind of in a way start with Powell and I's old band. We were in a band together called Silence the Messenger here in San Antonio. Then around probably for almost a decade or so that we were doing that. And towards the end of that band, I guess I need to rewind a little bit. We actually met within the Ruins back in probably 2009. Our bands would play shows together all the time, over the years. Anytime they'd come through, or we'd drive out to Austin or Houston maybe to go hang out. So our bands have actually known each other for a long time. And towards the end, around 2015 or so, they asked Paolo to fill in on an All-Stars tour playing bass. He played guitar in our old band, but they asked him to fill in on bass, and so he did that. And then STM ended up breaking up, and then they were doing this big U.S. headliner that was a 5-week run. And about halfway through, Tim had to go home because he had some medical issues. So they called me up and asked me to fill in for the rest of that. And I had to learn 10 or 11 songs as quickly as I could, within a couple days.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a lot. But they're friends, and you do what you can to help them out. I had just been sitting around because Silence Messenger had broken up for probably almost a couple of years at that point. So I was just doing the normal life thing, I guess you could say. And so they hit me up, and I finished out that tour with them. And then that was in the fall of 2018. Or no, I'm sorry, fall 2017 is when it actually was. Then the holidays came and went, and then a little at the beginning of the next year, Joe was like, hey, so we're kind of at a point where we want to make this switch over. If you're ready to do it, I think we're kind of ready to move on. And if you'd like to take the job, we'd be happy to have you. And so I was getting used to my regular life. I was happy at my job at the time, and I was seeing this girl, and which all that went south, and that's kind of where the record begins. So it took me a second to actually say yes, but then I look back on it now, and I totally would have kicked my own ass if I didn't take the gig. So it took a month or so of mulling it over, but then I was like, yeah, you know what, I need to do this. I need to hop on board. So that's how I got into the band. And then pretty quickly after that, the label wanted to put out at least one single with me. So we put out what ended up being World Undone and Resurgence. And then we started writing the record after that. And now it's almost 3 years later. And the record's finally out. So when I say it was kind of a long road, it's been some time, man. But so I tried to keep that as concise as I could. But here we are.
No, that's awesome. That's a great story. I mean, were you a fan of their music? I mean, obviously you guys are friends, but were you a fan of the music before they asked you to join?
Yeah, I was. When we first met, they were Creature had just come out, so they were starting. they were on that album cycle, and I had heard of them before, but they played a show here at a venue called the White Rabbit in San Antonio, and I was our band had hopped on it. Silence Messenger hopped on the show. We were just a local band at the time. And I was sitting in my car, doing my Melissa Cross warm-ups, and Tim knocks on the window, and he's just like, hey, is that Zen of Screaming? Is that Melissa Cross? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I do those too. That's awesome. And he's like, you guys up next? And I was like, yeah, we're about to go on. He's like, all right, cool, man. I'll check y'all out. So then he watched our set, and we just kind of became friends, and I was jamming out to their stuff all the time. And I was so I was a fan of the band, and I would always be I would just enjoy their shit every time they would put it out. And so it was already kind of cool in that sense that you're friends with a band that you enjoy their music too. It's one thing if you're friends with people just because they're cool people, but you maybe not into their music, and that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. With Ruins, I was always like into it. I always admired like Joe's writing and stuff. He was just a like great guitarist, and I just always thought the songs were really like heavy but catchy in their own way, and I was always all about it. And then what's funny though is that when I, even being a fan of the music and enjoying it, when I had to learn all those songs for that headliner, like really quick, like you think you know them because you've been listening to them for years, but then you try and pick apart all the details about when you're supposed to come in at certain sections of a song. You're like, shit, this is harder than I thought. I thought I knew this song pretty well, but apparently I don't. So,
yeah. Wow.
Even being a fan, yeah, like it was still kind of tough at first to figure out some of the ins and outs of the songs. But I've always been a fan of the band, so it worked out well too. So I'm not like hopping on board of a band that I'm, you know, not really fond of, but just doing it to do it. You know, I'm still very much a fan of the band, so it worked out pretty well.
Well, you can tell from the music that you guys gel. You know, I'm a big fan of metal, and one of the things that always stuck out to me about the band is, you know, there's a lot of stuff that just is kind of like textbook that comes out, and a lot of people kind of copied the Meshuggah kind of style, but I always felt like Within the Ruins was kind of like elevating things to another level, which is cool to hear in metal.
Yeah, definitely. It can get a lot of stuff can get drowned out pretty quick. So it's tough to find stuff that stands out sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like there's such a, I mean, in any genre really, there's a temptation to kind of copy what the thing is at the time, you know. And
exactly.
So I always respect bands that kind of are doing something unique and forging their own path.
Yeah.
What would you say are your influences? Like what bands and musicians and art like influenced you to get into this type of lifestyle?
Oh man, it's a couple things, I guess. It really started when I was a kid. My parents put me into a private magnet school, and so I had to choose between orchestra or band. So like in, I think first grade, I think I had to choose, and I ended up choosing the violin. And so I played in the orchestra actually since I was a little kid, and that went on until I was a teenager. Probably until like I want to say like sophomore year or so. So I was getting like pretty good at it, you know, and I was like, doing district competitions and like placing really well in them. And, the stuff that I would learn in school, like I would learn it really well. And so like you had to practice for your grade, like X amount of hours a week. And then I started just like I wouldn't practice because I knew how to play the song already. So I felt it was pointless. And then my parents wouldn't like lie for me anymore about how many hours I practiced. So I started like doing bad in orchestra class. And, but at that point, then I turned it and like, you know, getting into it, like my teenage years, and, I'm soaking up stuff, you know, your brain's kind of like a sponge when you're that age. You kind of take in everything. And I was, really getting into like pop punk and nu metal. Those are my two things. And so I was like, well, shit, I want to pick up a guitar. Like I could maybe play some of this stuff. So I was like, well, I already know how to play something with strings, you know, I can move my fingers around. Let me try a guitar. So I gave up the violin and picked up a guitar, and I started like playing like, you know, anything from Korn or Slipknot or Disturbed, like, or, you know, but then also pop punk. Like I had a couple friends that were into like Blink-182 and Green Day, Sum 41, that kind of thing. So I was just like teaching myself stuff when I was pretty young. And then something about like nu metal, especially, I could go on for days talking about nu metal. But I that was my shit though, was nu metal, man. I soaked up all that. I bought I had a annual subscription to like Circus magazine. So I was always cutting out pictures, and I had CD booklets all over my wall and posters and stuff. Like, sometimes, well, I lived in Utah for a few years also. So we had a basement, and when my parents would leave, I would like put on like a Disturbed or a Linkin Park album, and I would scream along to it and sing along and just kind of try and mimic what those guys were doing, because I liked what I was hearing with their voices. And so that's kind of when I started. Utah? Bountiful. Lived in Bountiful.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I grew up in Utah.
Oh, cool. Where were you at?
Orem, Provo.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm a Texas kid. I was born in Houston. We lived in San Antonio for a little while. But around middle school, early high school, my dad's job took us to Utah for 3 years. So it was just like a little random lived out there for a little bit and then came back to Texas. So
Bountiful's kind of out there too. It's like between Idaho and Salt Lake, basically.
Yeah, it's not super far from Salt Lake. It was nice. I mean, I look back on it and I was like, that was a cool experience. But it was definitely a big culture shock going from Texas to Utah. Is that like, people are different. The weather is extremely different. It was just it was a big difference out there. But so we had a basement out there, and that was when I was getting like I said, teaching myself screaming and singing like at full volume, and just I liked what I heard, so I was trying to mimic it. And we had this little, like, the high school I was at had like a battle of the bands, but it wasn't really like a battle. It was just like if you were in a band, like if you guys played music, they had like a Saturday lined up where your band could play like a few songs. And so I put some friends together and we played like 3 songs. 2 of them were like original songs, and one of them was a Blink-182 cover. And I remember just like being done with that set and getting off stage and telling my mom, I was like, Mom, that's what I want to do. Like, that was the first time I played in front of people like that. And it was like this huge rush. I was just this kid, like taking my guitar and amp to my mom's minivan. And like, I was just super stoked. Like, I'd never felt anything like that before. And I was like, I didn't know what I was going to do necessarily, but I knew I wanted to play in front of people. And I think that's kind of when it like really started. So it was a long journey from when I was a little kid playing the violin to, playing new metal and pop punk, and it was just it kind of just took off from there, and you just start diving deeper and deeper and finding new bands, and just didn't stop. It just kind of kept going.
So you have a really deep musical background. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So
it goes back.
One question I had for you guys, because I'm a big Pantera fan, is you have the song titles in the album. The first song's called Domination, and there's a song called Hollow. Is Pantera influence involved with any of that? Or any of those? I mean, the songs don't sound obviously like the Pantera songs, but I was just curious as a fan if that was any kind of an influence.
I mean, like, we all kind of enjoy Pantera, but it wasn't actually one of those things where we were like, dude, we need to do something for Pantera. Like, it wasn't really like that.
I got you.
We, especially with Domination, that's kind of a big one. We were like, just dude, fuck it. Like, who cares? Like, bands have similar sounding song titles and album titles and stuff all the time. Like, it's just the name of the song, and that's kind of what it ended up being. If anything, I don't know if you picked it out or not, but if anything in that track, there's a little section of Joe's guitar solo that's actually kind of a tribute to the track 1 by Metallica. There's the guitar solo in there is actually a little bit of a nod. You can kind of hear it's like his version of a section of that solo. Check that out. Like I said, we all like Pantera, so it's not, that's fine. But it's
and you're from Texas too, man. I didn't know you guys were I didn't know you were from Texas.
Yeah. Paolo and I live here in San Antonio, and Joe and drummer live out in Westfield, Massachusetts. So we're kind of like halfway across the country from each other.
One of the things I really love about Joe's playing too is I hear a lot of video game influence. Like there's a couple of songs. I wrote a review of the new album, and there's one sound he does that's like reminds me of like Ninja Gaiden or something, like from when I was a kid playing Nintendo. So
yeah, he's snuck some of those in a few different spots like over the years too. And I want to say it's Hollow. Yeah, I think it is Hollow. He's got what sounds kind of like the Tetris theme in there.
Yep, totally.
Yeah, there's that there. In one of his instrumental tracks, 86, he's got Pink Panther in 86.
I heard that too.
Yeah,
I thought it was Inspector Gadget. I think in the review, I was like, it sounds like the theme to Inspector Gadget, but Pink Panther is actually
Pink. Yeah, and it's like as dark and serious as the album actually is, it's one of those things too. It's like we're still just, we took this album very seriously, but it was, we're still just kind of having fun. We're still just dudes. And I even heard Joe even said, I heard him answer the question about it one time. He's just like, yeah, I kind of just like to do it to fuck with people and just still have a good time. Like, he's great at what he does, and that's just kind of him like having a little fun with it and not taking himself or the band like too seriously. They're fun he finds great ways of working that stuff in there. I love it. It's a lot of fun.
So that's a good segue to my next question, which is what was the writing and recording process like for Blackheart for you guys with COVID and everything? Like, I guess walk me through that a little bit.
We kind of lucked out actually because us being split apart, after originally when I first joined the band, those two singles that we put out, World Undone and Resurgence, those two were actually the beginning of Joe writing the next record. But we needed to put those out because the label wanted to, put something out that had my voice on it. So he kind of then started writing the record again after that. So that's when it really began, like a couple of years ago. Since we're split apart, Joe has his own studio up in Massachusetts. It's attached to his brewery also. So it's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the perfect setup. He's got a brewery and a studio in the same building. It's perfect. So that makes recording sessions a lot of fun. But he'll knock out songs in the studio and program some drums to it so you can kind of get the full picture of what it sounds like. And he'll put it in the Dropbox, and Paolo and I will just listen to it on our end. And he'll usually send like 2 or 3 at a time, and I'll pick one. I'll work on usually like one song a night before I know that we have to fly out there. And I'll just kind of hammer out a track. Like I'll play it through a little Bluetooth speaker and just rewind and do the sections and write out my lyrics to it. And then we would fly out there for maybe a week or so and knock out like 3 tracks at a time during that week. And we probably did that process like 4 or 5 times. And it did, that's part of what took a little while to do it. Joe's obviously kind of picky when it comes to the stuff that he writes. He wants it to be exactly how he wants, he doesn't like destroy his brain trying to make it perfect or anything, but he does care about it. So he puts a lot of effort into getting it to sound the way that he wants. So that in itself kind of takes a little bit, but us being in Texas, we have to plan out the trips. So that took a little bit also. So it just over, a couple of years, it eventually all came together, but we were done with the recording process before the pandemic actually hit. So, we got pretty lucky that, we didn't really have to do very much, after it hit. So we were kind of just starting the mixing and mastering, around that time. And so at that point we can just listen to tracks, at home. We don't have to go anywhere for it. So we lucked out pretty good on that. And then once it was all kind of in place, then it was like, okay, well now we need to figure out the release. Do we wait, do we wait till this is all done or, do we just do it anyways? And we just landed on like, we need to just put it out. So, we kind of got it right in at the buzzer before COVID hit. And, we only had to travel really like once to do, to fit in all the music videos. We did that in like 2.5 days or so, something like that. Like a pretty quick weekend. We squeezed in all the videos, but that was pretty much the only traveling we've had to do, during all this. So it's been a pretty safe process otherwise.
Awesome. So you guys recorded the whole thing at Joe's studio?
Yeah. We did it all out there. For previous records, like up until about Phenomenon, I want to say it was around there. Joe, the guys would go to a guy named Josh Wickman out in Michigan. Hold on, I'm thinking. Right? I want to say it was around there. I just want to make sure I have the timeline right now. I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that's right. It was around Phenomena. Sorry. Phenomena is when Joe kind of started to be like, you know what, I think I could do this. And so he kind of built his own studio and started doing it all himself. And like we'd get everything mixed and mastered by Josh then at that point. But Joe, built his own studio and got all the software, learned everything. He learned little by little, like with Josh over the years. But then, like I said, he was just like, you know what, I can do this. So we recorded everything with Joe. It's literally like it's just us doing it. And then this one we still sent out to Josh for him to mix and master it, but everything was done at Joe's studio, which is kind of nice in a way, like having it spread out like that, because then we don't have to feel rushed or like be crammed into a spot for like a month and have to crank something out that we're not necessarily happy with or getting stressed or whatever. We could knock out a few tracks at a time and then listen to them for a little bit and then make, adjustments from there, instead of like putting together this one whole album and, having to have it out by a deadline and, down the road being like, oh man, we should have done this, or we should have done this. Like, we get to sit on the tracks like a few at a time and like really spend some time thinking about any changes we want to make or what have you. So it ended up like, it was a long process, but it ended up kind of working out for the better, because we're really happy with how the album turned out. So
it sounds great.
It ended up being good. Thanks, man.
So what are you listening to currently? What kind of, do you listen to a lot of metal still, or do you kind of branch out? Like, what kind of stuff do you like musically?
I like a lot of stuff. I'm not one of those dudes that's like, I only listen to metal because I'm in a metal band. And like, I couldn't do that. Like, it's too narrow-minded for me. But I do still listen to a lot of metal. That's kind of a thing. Like, some guys, after you're in a band for a while and you do the touring thing for a long time, you kind of lose track of, new bands coming out or who's doing what. Like, you kind of just do your own thing, worry about your own band, and that's more or less it. And that's totally fine. I mean, I think to some degree you can only keep up so much, but, even though I'm kind of on the performing side of being in a band, I'm still very much a fan of the music in general. So it's like, there's a lot of these bands that are out right now that I would be listening to anyways, even if I wasn't in a band. I'm still just a fan as much as I am the performer as well. So I still listen to metal, especially like at the gym. Like I have like a gym playlist I build that I'm constantly adding to when I find stuff, and it's all metal. Like, I listen to stuff that's not metal, but it's like my favorite genre, I guess, obviously. So I'm gonna keep up with it the most. Like lately, like the stuff that's been on super big repeat for me. Actually, it's all stuff that's come out this year, really. The new Currents album is one of my favorites. Fit for an Autopsy's new record. The new Northlane album. Shadow of Intent. Great American Ghost. Man, there's a bunch of stuff I could honestly probably just keep mentioning things.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, because a lot of bands, when I ask that question, a lot of bands are afraid to like play favorites or you know what I mean? Like, I think they're afraid that like, if they say that they like a certain album or something, like another band that they know might be like, hey, what about us? Or, so I appreciate you actually like naming some stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, I'm not naming those bands because like they're like, I do happen to know most of those guys, if not all of them. Like, we either played with them or I've known them from my previous band. So I'm already like friends with those guys. But like I said, even if I was not touring or I didn't know them personally, like I would still love those albums. And all the ones that I did mention, also the new Kingdom of Giants is really good too. It just came to my head. I forgot to mention it. Those are all ones that I've been listening to like front to back. Like, I don't skip anything. I love every song on all of those records. Like, they're on repeat. I listen to every song. I'm just a fan. It's cool shit. So I don't have any,
that's awesome.
Any issue pointing out ones that I'm like stoked on currently. But it's just fun though, because it's like, I can be a fan of that band, but also be like, oh, but I know those guys too. So I can play shows with them and like hang out and like, so it's a very cool, like, I get the best of both worlds type of thing. At least that's how I look at it. So I try and keep up anyways to the best of my ability to see who's getting popular right now. What's the internet talking about? What new metal bands are popping up?
Yeah,
I'm about it. It's still fun to me. I still like it.
I feel like the best bands and musicians are that way, right? Like they're passionate about the music, and so they're like always like excited about listening to new bands, listening to new music. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, you never know what's going to influence you to try something new, or like that's what I like. In a way, you're an artist. You always want to be trying new things and experimenting. Like, that's just kind of how your brain works. You like and I like hearing other people's ideas too and what they're doing. It's very easy to get caught up, I think, in like I need my band to succeed. Like, I need my band to do the best, and I want my band to be the most popular, and blah blah blah. Like, it's very easy to get selfish about it. And to some degree, you do get a little selfish about it because you do want to be successful.
Sure.
And it's healthy to an extent, but also like, like be happy for your friends that are putting out cool music too. Like promote them. Like they're working just as hard as you are to put their stuff out. And, there's tons of cool stuff out there. So that's like, I'm constantly excited. The more bands or artists in general that you find out about and listen to and fall in love with, then you have that many more things to be excited for when they drop new stuff. Like it's like, oh shit, I prefer to have the problem of not knowing what to listen to because there's so much cool stuff out versus like, oh, I'm just listening to the same stuff again. What do I want to pick? Like finding new stuff and keeping things fresh is definitely the way I'd prefer to do it. I love finding new bands and, seeing what everyone's doing these days and kind of watching how the trends change within music styles and like merch and, how all of it, shifts and changes. It kind of all goes in waves and you see one band do it and then like they start doing it really well and then other bands start kind of copying or mimicking and, it's kind of all just works together in a way. And that's interesting to me. I kind of love every aspect about doing band stuff, like, changing, growing, every artistic aspect, even the business side to me is really interesting. I mean, I don't know. To sum that, to put a bow on that, I guess I don't know. I like keeping up with stuff. It's fun. It's fun to me. I like having more stuff to choose from and look forward to. That's just me.
Yeah. I think it makes your music better too in the long run, just having that kind of attitude.
Yeah, especially if you can draw from, different influences and stuff and be like, you know what, I heard this guy do this. Let me see if I can do something like this, but here's how I would do it. Or, not to like not like rip each other off, but like, it's, I mean, all of this anyways, where the, music is at right now, it's all standing on the shoulders of giants anyways. It's just a matter of like, okay, well, are you going to directly rip off this and call it your own, or are you going to just kind of make it your own and, twist it a bit and like just kind of put your spin on it, like that kind of thing, that's kind of all this is anyways. But
yeah, I think it was Picasso, the quote that's like, "When good artists borrow, great artists steal," or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I think it was. And I think there's truth to that, it kind of just is what it is.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, everything's influenced by everything else. There's no. I guess I don't know if I could say there's no original thought, but it's every. It's like you said. It's like standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're trying to say. It's like it's not. It's tough to even find the words for it, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Right.
That's kind of just what this is. I mean, it's not to say that there's not originality. But I mean, in one sense, you're not, if you went to like the 80s, you're not going to hear a band like Within the Ruins or something like in the 80s. It just you just wouldn't find that. So in a way, it's originality in that way, but it's, without stuff from, that era of metal, like it wouldn't have progressed and gotten to a certain place that it is now. So it's all kind of connected. It's all connected in a way. It's kind of like it's almost like a family tree or something, like it's, it's different, but without, previous generations, you wouldn't be here. So
same descendants of the same DNA with the same DNA or the same bloodline.
Yeah. It's like, you might not have much in common or even look the same or but in some way, in some small way, it's like, that's where you came from. So it's cool.
Metal,
like, I mean, you see how it's changed.
In metal, everyone could look at each other and go, hey, well, we're really all just technically copying Black Sabbath. And Black Sabbath was copying blues players and stuff.
Yeah, it's that the Spider-Man meme where they're just pointing at each other. It's like, but that's everybody. It's everybody.
Yes.
Like everyone's like, dude, we're all just playing metal. Like that's why I'm kind of glad though. I think it's changed a little bit now, where like kind of even, I mean, it's always kind of in some way been like this, but even up until like it's at least when you get to like the subgenres and stuff like that, but like even around like the MySpace days, it was kind of like a little bit more clicky and like Like, well, you either like metalcore or deathcore, or you like hardcore, like, you know, before it started like mixing and stuff. It was very like, okay, you're either going to be with this group of people or this group of people. It was very like, you know, branched off and like separate, and it was like there were gatekeepers, and you know, I think there probably are, you know, in some way still, but like I think it's different a little bit, at least nowadays, even now, where it's just like, you know what, dude, we all listen to like I can, you know, I'll listen to fucking, you know, like Behemoth for, you know, for an album, and then I'll switch it over to something like Kubla Khan, you know, just like I just need some like cool like beat down like heavy shit, like, but you know, and then like you brought up earlier, like then I can just switch it to Meshuggah. Like you know, they're all just like different genres of heavy music, and like there's nothing wrong with enjoying multiple styles. It's just I never really understood the clickiness. I think it was just like a cool guy thing or something maybe, but I never really bought into it. I was always just kind of like, you like what you like, and who cares? Completely. And I kind of found that same thing with nu metal. Like I said, that was my big influence was nu metal, and so I just always listened to it. I listened to it all the time. And even after, like, probably once you're like mid 2000s or so is when it was like dying out and not being super popular anymore. And then like the MySpace era was starting to take over. And, so it was, you know, more scene bands like metalcore, emo, screamo, whatever. So nu metal had like basically fallen off by that point. And then, you know, there were people that would like poke fun at nu metal because it wasn't trendy anymore, and they looked at the songs as being stupid, or the fashion styles that it produced as being, you know, out of date now. And but the ironic thing is, like we were just talking about music all being related, the kids that like myself that grew up listening to it have started incorporating nu metal into, you know, their deathcore bands now, or their metalcore bands. Like it's, you know, it's brought full circle, and where it's like cool to enjoy nu metal again. And I was like sitting back the whole time, like, it's always been cool. Y'all are just assholes about it. Like, it's, you know, not like I'm speaking in generalities, not you know, not calling anybody out, but I kind of saw that was one like example of that in particular, where I was like why are you guys like shitting on this music? I mean, like, when you really think about it though, nu metal is probably the last like big commercial success for metal. Like, it was on MTV. These bands were filling up stadiums, and now there's only a few of them left that can actually do that if they're still together. You know, it was a huge success as far as heavy music goes, and now like there's not a whole lot that really gets even close to that anymore. So you know, people making fun of it are the kids now that are like, oh, it's cool again. I'm like, dude, it was cool the whole time. You're just being dumb. But
you know, it's funny to me.
That's just one example. You know.
Yeah, it's funny to me. Bands like the Deftones and Korn have really stood the test of time. Like, Deftones just put a new album out this year, and it's great. Mm-hmm. So to your point, there's a lot of great nu metal that is still relevant.
It's still relevant. And I think like Korn put out one last year. I think it's called The Nothing. Oh yeah. Like, it's like, I don't know if you checked that one out, but like, it's still very much like Korn. It's just heavy Korn. Like, I listened. Like, what all? Yeah, it was awesome. It was a cool record. I'm like, God, this is why I still love this. Like, that's a heavy riff right there. I mean, like, it's not like deathcore, brutal, heavy, breakdown heavy, you know, but it's like, you know, nu metal heavy, and I'm like, that's still cool to me, I think, anyways. And it's like a lot of even like old riffs from bands like that from like the late 90s, early 2000s, like, they were still heavy riffs. But I think one of the biggest changes that there was, and this sounds like a small thing, but realistically, a lot of those riffs are like those style riffs are being used now, but like, bands are just, the drummer is just hitting the china now instead of the hi-hat. You know, it's like it's still the same heavy riff, but you just switching a cymbal and it makes a big world of difference, you know, but it's still heavy. It's like you said, it's still relevant. So some of those bands have really just stood the test of time, and like they powered through.
I would say Slipknot is arguably one of the biggest metal bands, if not the biggest metal band in the world right now, and they're direct descendants of. I mean, they're nu metal, like on speed. Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know they're kind of like they're not like they got lumped into it, obviously, and like to me, I mean, I'll always probably still call them a new metal band, but
I would put them in that realm. I would put them in that genre for sure. They were like the next level of it.
Exactly, yeah, because they had like, it was so fast paced and energetic, and like there was a lot of stuff going on. It wasn't just your typical like, pick new metal band X, Y, or Z. Right. Yeah, and Slipknot was definitely my favorite. Slipknot was definitely my favorite. They're still my favorite band, and like that's a great example of like, man, they found what works for them, and like the songs are great on their own, but I mean, I think without the cool imagery and stuff, I think I don't know if they would actually be as successful as they are. Where they are, yeah. I mean,
they're almost like a death metal Kiss kind of.
Kinda, yeah, kinda. I mean, Corey Taylor's always one of my favorite vocalists. I loved the way his lyrics and stuff, and he's a great front man. Corey Taylor's great. I'm hoping one of these days he'll hear all my praise and then like
honestly, no joke. I was thinking this morning about one of the questions I was going to ask you. I mean, actually, the last question is about touring plan, and I was thinking like, what would be like the best metal concert? Like, I would love to see Within the Ruins open for Slipknot. I was like literally thinking that this morning.
And I was just talking to Joe about that like a couple nights ago. Because we actually got a little push from the Knotfest pages the day the album came out, and so I was like texting him about something, and then I was just like, dude, even if we just got like one, an actual like full length tour with Slipknot, of course, would be incredible, but it's tough. It's doable. I mean, King 810 got a run with them. Motionless in White had a Slipknot run. I'm like, so like bands from our like genre like have crossed over and like they notice, so I mean, I couldn't discount it completely. I'd say it's unlikely, but
yeah,
even if we just did like a one-off or a weekend or something, like a Knotfest weekend or something, I'd be like, okay, I mean, all right, here's good. I did it. I'll keep going, but now, if things ended now, I'd be like, you know what, I got my Slipknot show. I'm good. So that's definitely one of them.
That's awesome.
And Joe agreed. He was like, yeah, Slipknot, or the only thing left would be Metallica then, once you check the Slipknot box. Like that's Joe's big band is Metallica. So, but of course, obviously, that's them. That's them, man. That's Joe's band. So that's why you have.
I just got
to the one song.
I just got a vinyl. Like Infectious Grooves put out a vinyl EP for Record Store Day, and Robert Trujillo plays with them. I don't know if you know who they are at all, but
yeah.
Metallica is just amazing. Like the fact that they have Trujillo in their ranks now alone is like amazing. He is like the direct descendant of Cliff Burton, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. But
yeah, no, he's great, man. He's a great player. Like I got to, like I'm not like a giant Metallica head. Like I like the band. Actually, I had a few of the records when I was younger. Like the first one I grabbed was Black Album. But I like Metallica. But I was never like, Metallica's the best fucking band in the world. I was never like one of those kids. But it's, I think it's because I was coming up a little bit past, when they're like after they got huge and stuff, and like so when I was a teenager, it's like, yeah, Metallica's already Metallica. Like what's going on now? Like so that was when I was watching like TRL and MTV and stuff, and that's where I saw bands like Limp Bizkit and like the video for Freak on a Leash was one of I think probably the first heavy song I ever heard, and I was like, what is this? And it blew my mind.
In that era, point, too, Metallica was kind of ass during that era, to be honest. Like that was when they did Load and stuff, and they weren't not ass, but like they weren't making music that I loved either. So
no, it's their like low point that everyone kind of talks about. I mean, like besides Saint Anger, but
yeah.
But I mean, but they were still doing, obviously still relevant. They're still relevant now. I mean, like they still play stadiums. I got to see them a few years ago, and it was an awesome show. It was a great show.
Yeah.
They're where they are for a reason. Exactly. Yeah. And that's not even up for debate. That just kind of is a fact, and it is what it is. They're the greatest.
All right, man. Well, let's wrap this up. Last question I have for you is what are your plans post pandemic? Do you guys have any big tours booked next year? Like what are your plans for 2021?
Oh man, right now I don't know anything about touring plans. My guess is, you kind of have these discussions amongst touring buddies and stuff. Like, man, I miss shows. I was talking to Ethan from the Plot and You last night, because they just did a live stream last night, and I was, it was really cool. Like, I tuned in, and like that's another example too. Like, those are just like friends. Like, I'd probably be listening to that band anyways, but I happen to know the guys, and so I texted him after the live stream. I was like, dude, that was great. It was good to see you guys. He's like, yeah, man. I wish the audio was a little bit better, but like I was like, dude, I wasn't even worried about that. I was just happy to be watching a show, and like, so I miss everything about shows, but who knows when that's going to come back, I guess, is my point really.
Yeah,
we were both talking about, like, I think there's a higher chance of doing overseas stuff, maybe like Europe or something, or maybe Japan or even Australia or something before. Like, that's all fun ideas to toss around anyways, but I think realistically for touring, you might have to do stuff like that if you before the United States is ready. So as far as like actual set in stone plans, I don't have anything just yet. Or if there's stuff being worked on, I'm not aware of it as of today. But we are gonna do a live stream pretty soon. So we'll at least have that. And I think for the immediate future, that's probably most bands' best bet, is doing that. And there might even be a place for that, down the road. Like if a band, is sitting at home for a little bit, doesn't have any actual tours going on, they might, the live stream might make its way into what bands do, at least for a little bit,
Yeah.
to have some kind of content out there. So we're doing one of those, but as far as like actual touring plans, I don't have anything just yet.
Nothing at the moment.
Like I said, nothing at the moment. Like I said, my hopes would be that it's sooner than later, but shit, man, I have nothing. It sucks. Because you put out a new record and you're like, all right, we got this tour lined up, and we're going here at this time. We're gonna do these festivals. Like, summertime's coming, gonna be here sooner than you know it, and it's like that's festival season. But like, is any of that even gonna happen? So it sucks that this is the world we're living in right now. But I don't have a good answer to the question, and I feel bad. But it's all kind of little by little feeling everything out. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
I'm disappointed because I was hoping to catch you guys live at some point, because that kind of music too. I mean, this kind of music especially, it's the live shows where it's all at, So.
Oh yeah, the album's one thing, but like, man, I miss watching bands live, man. Like, you're not just hearing the music, but you're feeling it. You're kind of in your own little world, like with your friends or whatever you're at the show with. That environment is just like a whole world, man. It's tough you can't really replicate it. Even like live streams are cool, but you're still just watching it on your computer, watching it on your phone.
Yeah. That energy,
and that's fine.
Of a live show.
Oh yeah, you can't beat it. It's you can't replicate it. It's got to be the live show. So even from like just not playing shows, but even just like as a fan, like just going to shows or like hanging out with friends, like I miss live music, man. I think people like. I would always try and push like friends or like make posts about like, hey, if you want to go see a band, like you should go see them, ask them off work, or like spend the money on tickets, because you might not see it. They might not come back around for like another year. They've got other plans. They're going to go other places. Like, if you have a band coming close to you, you should see it. Or who knows, maybe they'll break up, or lose your favorite vocalist or something, like see them while you can. And I think people are hopefully going to come out of this with that lesson of how important live music is, to all of us. So when shows get going, I think they're gonna be going pretty strong. I think
it's the conversation went really fast. We were almost at an hour, so to me that's a sign.
Yeah, I just noticed it, and I was like, holy shit! Okay, damn, an hour. All right. So I mean, whatever.
Awesome, Steve. Thank you so much again. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, brother. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Take care of yourself.